Hi, it's me again. I decided to give you my opinion of the top science fiction movies. I was going to do just one list, but I thought it was too limiting. So I decided to break it up into two lists. List 1 is my top 10 classic science fiction films, and is made up of movies prior to 1977. The reason for that cutoff is 1977 is the year Star Wars and Close Encounters of the Third Kind both came out, and I believe they changed how science fiction was treated. I have something else to say about Star Wars, but I will save that for later, when I film the second list. Before I start, I want to say something about viewing these films. I know it can be difficult for the average modern moviegoer to adjust to watching motion pictures from these time periods. We are all accustomed to computer-generated effects and multi-channel stereo explosions, but once you account for the era the film was produced in, you will see that the storylines, themes, directing styles, acting and film innovations are what make these movies great. Okay, with that said, here is my list of the top 10 classic films in science fiction cinema. At number 10 is Metropolis, directed by Fritz Lang, and released in 1927. Yes, it is a silent movie, but it is pretty amazing considering when it was made. Many of the images are stunning. It also includes the robot that inspired C-3PO. There are many versions of the film available, but no one has seen the original version since its 1927 premiere. I understand a full print was recently found and is being restored. Hopefully we will get to see that soon. Number 9 is The Fly, directed by Kurt Neumann, and released in 1958. Definitely a classic, but I struggled with classifying this as sci-fi or horror. But it is the story of a scientist who invents a transporter, so it made this list. Incidentally, the 1986 remake directed by David Cronenberg is pretty good too, but falls more easily into the horror category. Number 8 is Gojira, directed by Ishiro Honda, and released in 1954, and then edited and re-released as Godzilla King of the Monsters in 1956. The original is very different from the later Godzilla vs. Monster movies that came later. Gojira is a cautionary tale on the dangers of atomic weapons, and when you consider it was made in Japan less than 10 years after the atomic bombing, it is all the more powerful. Number 7 is Fahrenheit 451, directed by Francois Truffaut, and released in 1966, adapted from the classic novel by Ray Bradbury. It is a tale of censorship taken to the extreme, and is especially poignant to all book lovers. The end always makes me wonder, which book would I try to memorize? At number 6 I chose War of the Worlds, directed by Brian Haskin, and released in 1953. One of my personal favorites, it adapts the H.G. Wells story to 1950s America. It won an Oscar for special effects, and I can still remember watching it on TV as a kid, and being frightened by the sound of the heat ray. By the way, the 2005 remake just proved even Spielberg and state-of-the-art special effects are not always an improvement. Number 5 is The Day the Earth Stood Still, directed by Robert Wise, and released in 1951. Although it may seem a little naive with its 1950s view of America, it is definitely a science fiction classic, and any sci-fi fan who does not know the phrase Claw 2, Barada, Nick 2, should be ashamed of themselves. The less said about the recent remake with Keanu Reeves the better. For number 4 I picked Soylent Green, directed by Richard Fleischer, and released in 1973. The themes of overpopulation and destruction of the Earth's ecosystem still ring true today. If you can watch this, and still enjoy your Soylent Green tacos, you are a better man than I. Number 3 is Planet of the Apes, directed by Franklin J. Schaffner, and released in 1968. A classic time travel story with iconic acting by Charlton Heston. It won Academy Awards for makeup, costume design and best musical score. The 2001 remake was fun to watch, but never comes close to the greatness of the original. Number 2 is 2001: A Space Odyssey, directed by Stanley Kubrick, and released in 1968. A brilliant movie that was written simultaneously by Kubrick and Arthur C. Clarke, in many ways turned out better than the novel. Much of it is without dialogue and the explanations are left to your imagination. Many critics consider 2001 to be one of the all-time great movies of any genre. And number 1 is Forbidden Planet, directed by Fred Wilcox, and released in 1956. Inspired by Shakespeare's The Tempest, it boasts Oscar-nominated special effects and an all-electronic musical score that is out of this world. Some of the creature effects were done by Disney animator Joshua Meador. I believe they are amazing, even by today's standards. Gene Roddenberry was quoted as saying this movie served as an inspiration for Star Trek. If you are a science fiction fan and have not seen this film, go out and get it now. So that is my list. Some of my honorable mentions include A Clockwork Orange, Colossus: The Forbidden Project, When Worlds Collide, and Logan's Run. If you disagree with any of my choices, let me know. Thanks for listening. Bye.